Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's workshop, Reader's Advisory Ideas and Practice, presented by Booklist. My name is Susan McGuire, and I'm the Senior Editor for Collection Management and Library Outreach here at Booklist. We'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsors, Penguin Random House Library Marketing and Sourcebooks, for their generous support of this program. We will send out some additional resources and recommendations from our sponsors in tomorrow's follow-up materials, and we'll showcase some of those resources throughout the program. Before we begin with today's program, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to all of today's slide presentations were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. We will send PDFs of all these slides, along with additional materials from our sponsors, to everyone tomorrow. If you have any trouble locating these materials, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we encourage everyone to submit your questions in the Q&A box. Our panelists will be grabbing questions from this box throughout their presentation, and we will be sure to pass along all unanswered questions to our panelists after the webinar so they can follow up via email. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the captions icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select show or hide captions from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of your captions at any time by selecting subtitle settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. We have an entire afternoon of workshops planned today, all designed to keep you up to speed on both the ideas and practice that will enhance your RA game. You can see today's schedule on the screen. Please note that you are welcome to attend any and all of these sessions and will receive a recording of every session tomorrow. So let's get started with our first workshop, the Reader's Advisory Conversation, presented by Michelle Morris and Sheila Michaels. Michelle Morris is a collection development librarian at the Fort Worth Public Library. Her role is to select books, analyze the collections, and provide reader's advisory assistance to staff. She is currently on the Library Reads Board of Directors. She graduated from the University of North Texas with her bachelor's degree in English in 2004 and her MLIS in 2010. In her 22nd year as a public educator and 7th year in the library, Sheila Michaels has fought for intellectual freedom and focused on meeting needs of students that go beyond traditional library resources. She has served on the Intellectual Freedom Committee of the Missouri Association for School Librarians and is a current appointee to the Young Adult Library Association Presidential Initiative Task Force, focusing on intellectual freedom. Recognizing that summer can be a challenging time for students, she created the Book Bag program to bridge the summer gap between school years, providing free books, food, and hygiene items to students and families throughout the summer. Sheila holds a BA in English and Secondary Education, Master's in Education, and Master's in Library and Information Science. She has been recognized as a 2022 ALA Emerging Leader and currently serves on the Standards Task Force to write library curriculum for the state of Missouri. Take it away, Michelle and Sheila.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Michelle and I are so excited to share some of our tips and tricks for Reader's Advisory. Michelle is an expert on Reader's Advisory for adults, and I am going to tackle Reader's Advisory for teens. So let's take it away. So we're going to have some tips and tricks for you. One of my first tips and tricks, Reader's Advisory, yes, brainstorm with your patron. But Reader's Advisory, no, would be Don't pull a Ron Swanson. And I can tell you, as most of my library experience is in a high school library with teens, sometimes I was wishing for this type of desk, but that's not what we want to do. So let's go ahead and launch into our first scenario. And we are going to ask for your participation a little bit here. For our first scenario for teen readers, and many of you have probably come across this type of patron before, and definitely in the public school I did. So a lot of times a student would say, hey, my teacher said I have to check something out. I don't like to read. I can never find anything interesting. I don't know what to get. So let's chat. We're going to ask for your interaction right now. What would a typical response from library staff be? Drop some of your ideas in the Q&A, and we're going to explore some of your ideas together. Okay, I see TV shows, movies they like. Perfect. Something you love to watch. Awesome. Well, what do you like? Yeah, isn't that what we want to say? What do you like to watch? TV show, movies, TV shows. So again, I think that we are definitely tuned in with our teens and their media preferences, which hopefully can transfer into print media. Graphic novel, very good suggestion, Elaine. TV shows, what do you find interesting? What kinds of things are you interested in? Sports, fantasy. What books have you liked before? What have you read in the past you did like? Awesome. These are all great suggestions and things that I think that we would normally default to. What do you like outside of school? Have you ever tried a graphic novel? Again, great suggestion. We know that graphic novels are so good for our reluctant readers. Fiction or nonfiction? I like that. Oh, I love this. We are going to find something for you. What a positive statement to our students. Video games. Awesome. Thank you, Nadia. Sports, hobbies, graphic novels. Okay, awesome. So a lot of really, really good suggestions here. Let's go to our next slide and we can brainstorm again on some suggestions that I had. So, sometimes we want to ask, oh, okay, well, why do you need to check something out? Like, is this an assignment, or are you absolutely required to, or what's going on here? To level up that question, what I would ask of your teen patron, whether you're in a public school library or if you're in a public library space, okay, what class or teacher are we working with? Notice that we can flip the language, and instead of, oh, okay, well, you have to do this, let's just get you something that, you know, could possibly appeal to you. How are we going to work together? How can we work with your teacher? How can we work with your class? If you are in a public school where you have teens, probably you're pretty in tune with, oh, okay, well, Ms. Brown teaches English too. And so I know, okay, you're a sophomore. Okay, I can kind of, you know, start brainstorming some ideas. If you're in a public library space, what I would recommend is maybe reach out to your local public high school and say, hey, you know, what English classes do you offer? Do your classes require a checkout? What are some of the things that your teachers are looking for? And we never want to, you know, put the teacher in a bad light, but we also want to gather more information. You also need to figure out, okay, does the teacher have certain requirements? I've worked with students before where the teacher says, well, the book has to be 250 pages. It can't be a TV or a movie. It can't be a graphic novel. It has to be the first book in a series. And so all of those things are important to know. And again, we don't want to act like we're putting the teacher on the spot, but just asking like, what class? Okay, what are we working with here? And really coming alongside the student and framing your question as, I'm working with you and we're going to work with your teacher and we're going to find something that will work. And it might not be for an English class. It could be, you know, what if their American history teacher wants them to check out a biography? And they're like, well, what's a biography? You know, so you have to gather those kind of information tools while you're talking with the student. But again, very important to act like, hey, I'm just coming alongside you. We're all going to work together. Several of you mentioned hobbies, which is awesome. And I've done this before, and I ask students, well, do you have a hobby? And they're like, no. And then I say, okay, well, let's level up that question. What did you do over the weekend? If they say, oh, I played tennis with my friends, or I watched a Game of Thrones, or I whatever, well, that tells me the hobby. Sometimes you have to give them a more concrete question, because teens can oftentimes think, well, there is a right or a wrong answer. Well, what did you do over the weekend? There's no right or wrong. Just tell me what you did for fun. And that can give you information as well. Like they have, 48 hours of free time. What did they choose to do? So that can give you information. And then what books do you like? Sometimes a teen will be able to say, oh, I like books like XYZ. But if they've already come to you and said, oh, I've never found anything that I like that I wanted to check out, that's probably not going to be a really good question for them. And again, many of you really keyed in on this, and this is really important and really good for teens. Tell me about a movie or a TV show you enjoy. And I even try to stay away from the question, what's your favorite movie? What's your favorite TV show? Because for our really concrete thinkers, they are like, well, I don't know what my favorite is. Okay, you don't have to narrow it down to your favorite. Tell me about just something that you enjoy. And a lot of you really keyed in on that. And I really like how several of you mentioned video games, because gaming, as we know, is a huge culture right now, and that can help you key in on the students' interests. All right, very good. Let's go to our next slide. So instead of April, you can tell I'm a Parks and Rec fan, being like, oh, I don't know what to get now. She was like, I love it. Those questions can really steer her in the right direction. So our next reader scenario is the inflexible reader. And probably many of you have come in contact with these types of readers. So here's a scenario, and I picked Ron Swanson. I love this graphic of him. I only read science fiction that happens in space or a different world. I don't like anything with romance, relationships, no fantasy, no sports, no drama. What do you got? Okay, so let's chat about that. What would you say to the sci-fi fan? What do you say if you're not a sci-fi fan? Drop your answer in the Q&A. Let's see what we got. Very good. What is it about sci-fi that you enjoy? Novelist, excellent. So for those of us who might not know about the genre they prefer, Novelist is a great resource. Authors you prefer, similar authors, very good. Oh, excellent. I love the suggestion of going to someone who you know is an expert. Historical sci-fi, love that. Nonfiction, space westerns. What are your favorite stories? Why they like those stories? Oh, realistic science, very good question. Dragons or wizards, yeah. Would you rather? Wizard versus the right, a classic, very good. The author's back catalog, novelist, yeah, novelist is going to be a really, really good tool. Crossover books. Oh, mystery sci-fi, love that. Sci-fi films, very good. So going back to our involuntary reader, knowing what kind of media they like can be very, very helpful. Hitchhiker's Guide, classic. Dune, yeah, I just saw Dune 2 last night, so I'm kind of in tune with that right now. Best sci-fi of the year, very good. Oh, I love this from Letitia. Are you a fan of Star Wars or Star Trek? That can tell you a little bit about their sci-fi preference. Andy Weir, good. Fantasticfiction.com, great suggestion. Robert Heinlein, good. Video game. Novelist again. Yeah, that's going to be a great one. Hugo's, thank you, Lindsay, for calling that out. The Hugo Award winner list is going to be really, really good. Murderbot Diaries. Awesome. Those are all great suggestions. So let's go to our next slide and see a few suggestions that I might have for you. So I use sci-fi as an example here, but I often had high school students come up to me and say, I really like horror books. I really want something scary. And I'm like, I don't know. So I often called upon a colleague who was really into horror, which some of you suggested that really helped. So questions to consider. What do you like so much about sci-fi? And once you know, well, okay, I know you like sci-fi, but what is it? Is it that they have a world creation, which is similar to fantasy, but maybe they don't like the fantasy element? What have you read more than once? So if I can pinpoint like, okay, this student is so into sci-fi and they have a book that they have read repeatedly, that tells me a lot about what they really like. And then again, as several of you mentioned, well, who is one of your favorite authors? And in this way, several of you mentioned, you can look at the back catalog for authors and you can tell, okay, what are some of the other things that they have written? Some ideas for you here. Read-alikes, of course, you can always look up a read-alike. Fellow library staff. And as I mentioned before, my horror expert actually wasn't a library staff. He was our instructional coach, but he read every horror book we added to the library, and his office was in the library. Every time a student asked, I need a good horror book, I'm like, you need to go talk to him. He knows exactly what the good ones are. Those Hugo Award lists, which a couple of you mentioned, are going to be a great resource. And, it's okay to go back to, last year and the year before. It's also okay to go back to those kind of older lists that would now be considered science fiction classics. And for a 15 or 16-year-old, some of those they might not have been exposed to yet. They might not be on Book Talk. They might not have been born when those books were published. So very good to also go back into those former award lists and see what's out there. And of course, Goodreads is a good option. Novelist, we've talked about novelists several times. So again, use your resources, and especially when a student, a teen asks for something that you're really not familiar with, you got to know where to go. And these are all great ideas. Very good. So you can turn your inflexible reader into, next slide, going to be very excited about what you're going to find for them. And maybe they'll find a new author, or maybe they'll find an older book by the same author, or a classic science fiction or whatever genre they're looking for that they can get really excited about. All right, let's go on to our third scenario. So third scenario is, this is what I call the insatiable reader. And this is when you have a teen who comes up to you and says, I've read everything. I've read everything by Colleen Hoover, Sarah Moss, Kristen Hanna, Rebecca Yarros, Frida McFadden, Stephen King, Emily Henry. Do you have any recommendations? And I am like, oh my gosh, I'm so impressed with you. You are what I would call the omnivore of readers. Like, you will read everything and you want to read everything, but the variety again of the genre and the authors, it's really hard to zero in on, well, what do they like? Are they just looking for escape? Are they just looking for entertainment? Do they just read just because that's just what they like to do? So what do you say to your insatiable omnivore? Drop your answer in the Q&A and let's look at some of your ideas. What are you in the mood for today? Actually, that's a really good question. Author with a huge backlist and let them frolic. Smaller read-alikes. What kind of day are you having? Excellent. Which did you like best? Good. Oh, a good author suggestion there. They sound like a mood reader. Yeah, for sure. What are you in the mood for? Very good. A lot of people suggesting, what are you in the mood for today? Oh, good suggestion. Go back to the classics. I love that. A less popular author? Yes. Movie adaptation? Love that. Is there anything you don't want to read about? That is a really, really good question for the omnivore reader. Oh, what I'm currently reading, I love that. The primary appeal about these books. Have you read anything from the 1900s? Love that, which sounds so far away in time, but many of us have read all of those. Foreign authors, love that. International authors. NPR, good suggestion. Find some diversity. Yeah, for sure. Why have you gravitated toward those authors? Ooh, what about those works sing to you? I love that question. Series or standalones? Oh, short stories. What a great suggestion. Debut books. Bibliocommons, great suggestion. Anthologies, love that. The Novel Cure. Have you tried nonfiction? What a great suggestion, especially some of those newer autobiographies, biographies, the one by Britney Spears that just came out. What didn't you like? Debut author, another suggestion, that's awesome. All great suggestions. So let's go to our next slide and we'll talk about a few ideas that I had for you. Okay, so again, what have you read more than one time? If a student is willing to repeat a book, especially our insatiable omnivore who will literally read anything, but they have chosen to reread something, that is going to be a really, really important idea for you to explore. And then who is one of your favorite authors? Obviously, you read everyone, you read everything, but who is one of your favorites? So a couple of techniques that I like to use with these types of teens is what I call the ghost of Christmas past. And a couple of you have mentioned that. Look at older award lists that they probably kept up with award lists as they were coming through. Like they read all the elementaries when they're in elementary, they read all the junior high, they read all the high school. But if you'll go 10 years back, when the YALSA awards came out in 10 years ago when they were 5 or 6 years old, chances are they haven't read those because those aren't the ones being featured on Book Talk right now. Those aren't the ones that have all of the hype. And a lot of them have tremendous literary value. Another thing that you can do, point them to the Alex award list from YALSA. And these are the ones that are going to be published like literally the previous year. Adult mass market books that have special appeal to young people. Some of the past Alex awards that have been so popular, like I'm Glad That My Mom Died, the Nickel Boys. And so the Nickel Boys might not be getting as much book talk and press right now, but what a profound read. And if you can get a teen to pick up a book by Colson Whitehead, how awesome is that? One of a previous Alex Award is Red, White, and Royal Blue. One of them is Educated by Tara Westover. So all of these really, really valuable books that students might not be, at the front of their minds right now, because that's not what is currently being published. That is where you can point them. And also with my omnivore readers, sometimes I like to ask, okay, well, what grade are you in? Oh, are they a junior or senior? Then I can casually ask them, hey, what are you thinking about after graduation? And if they're like, oh, I'm definitely going to a 4-year college, I'm probably going to point them to some of those classics they might not have picked up before. I might point them to an AP list. I might point them to any college readiness list because they're an omnivore and they're going to read anything, well, they might as well get some of those classics under their belt that could help them, in their 4-year college. And obviously, even if you're not going to a 4-year college, those classics are going to have value. But for a kid that is geared that way, that's going to have a special appeal to them. Oh, I should read this before I go to college. Okay, I can do that. Point them to, Pulitzers. I don't know that a lot of teens are in tune with the Pulitzer Prize list that comes out. Point them to that, point them to the National Book Awards. And so a lot of times these omnivore readers it appeals to them, like to have a checklist, like, oh, I'm gonna, check off, I'm gonna read all the National Book Awards, I'm gonna read all the Pulitzer nominees for this year. So those are some of the ways that you can get the omnivores more titles and more of the depth that they read. And again, if they are willing to read anything and they're only reading popular authors right now, and I'm not saying they don't have literary value, but maybe steer them in the direction of some of the classics and some that they might not be familiar with. Let's go to our next slide. And you can turn your omnivore really happy because they're going to have a lot more things to choose from now with your suggestions. All right, take it away, Michelle.
Hello, I'm Michelle, and I'm here with the more adult selections or like reader's advisory. And so here's an example I had, and it happened with me where it was a young woman and she wanted a mystery without a murder. And so I guess the first question I asked is like, you can answer in the chat, what would you do? Like, what questions would you ask her to get started on the interview or find out what she wants to read exactly? So yeah. Oh. Wow, this is, yeah. And so you're asking like what kind of mysteries are they interested in, or are they interested in murder off the page? Like, and so, like, would they be interested in heist? I'm seeing a lot of favorite authors, and so obviously really good questions like, would murder not be the focus, or nobody can die whatsoever? Or like, what kind of mystery are they trying to solve, which is a really great thinking of mystery outside of just murder. So, and of course the classic, what was the last book you read that you enjoyed, to be kind of a starting point to finding other books they would be interested in. And yes, are you interested in cozy mysteries? Like, what authors have they enjoyed in the past? And that's really good. And do you have any other special interest for leading to that? And an example of the kind of thing you're looking for, there's lots of really good questions or ideas in the chat. And so this is kind of from my experience. And I think a lot of people first want to go to cozy, which is what I actually did. And she wasn't as interested in that. And so I kind of had to kind of keep asking more about like, what was she interested in pacing? And obviously like people that ask about what's outside of murder, but like heist and other kind of that. And like we kind of walked through more and like what kind of favorite did she like. But yeah, it was more of a thriller, but also like understanding through reference interview, what was she looking for? Like not so much, she was not so much interested in domestic thrillers because it's usually family, so like that. Yeah, and so yeah, people asking a lot of really good questions like, what is your favorite mystery, like female or male main character, like story location, thriller without a graphic death. And like that was kind of, yeah. And so like another example related to that was like, what if she was asking for a romance without a happily ever after? Like what kind of questions or how would you start to approach trying to find out exactly what she wanted in that kind of query? And so like, was she, there's a lot of good questions, like, was she like a romantic drama or tragic love stories, or what was she like about the romance and like romance over time, or like the last book she read? There's a lot of really, really good suggestions. Um, Wow. And like, what's your favorite character? Yes, lots of people, when they ask that, they ask kind of more, not so much about the romance, but characters and tropes that they're interested in. Does romance have to be the focus of the story or just part of the story? And someone pointed out it could be relationship fiction or women's fiction. And those are all very good ideas to bring to the fore. You're right. Someone said they could want more literary fiction rather than genre fiction. And of course, asking like the authors, the tropes, like any particular setting or ideas that they would be interested in would be a good start. Like can the couple still be together but not married with a baby on the way? So a non-traditional happy ending, and seeing what other options or possibilities that they have. Like, yes, ending like on a high note rather than happily ever after. And of course, thinking outside of what exactly is, but like how would they define the happy ending versus, or maybe they perhaps want something with a gay romance. And so it's very important to ask them exactly what do they mean, or if they understand, because we usually have an idea of what, when someone says they want romance or a certain genre, we have an idea of what is in the genre, but maybe they don't exactly, and maybe they are not clear about what they want. Okay, that's really good. So the next one is kind of like, once again, ask for reader likes, and people like ask for, a patron asked for a book like Only for the Weak by Natasha Bishop, which is a TikTok self-published book that you've never heard of. So of course, next thing I would ask is like, oops, sorry, got a little ahead of myself. Like, what questions would you ask, um, and how do you connect that to what do you have in your collection? Because oh, that's a lot. Yeah. Yes, and so of course you're probably gonna have to ask them for more information about this book, or like the books, anything similar. Like if we might have it on Librarian, like what is the storyline? What did they like about the book? And like obviously finding out more information about the book. And like, do they know what the creator from TikTok usually recommends, or what the author recommends, or what, maybe ask the account that recommended it, what kind of books they usually recommend. And so, yeah. And so, yeah. And did it remind you of everything? Oh, yeah. And so, yes. And of course, you like want to, if it's not in your collection and you have the money, definitely would suggest to purchase. And so that one, and so, yeah. And of course, asking enthusiastically about these questions about what's available. And like, if you can look it up online to see if you can find a read alike based on what the summary of the book is. And that, and so yeah, it's because if you don't, yeah, and so like then like this book is a Kindle Unlimited, so it's probably not as available, so you might have to go to like Amazon and go read a public resource that has information on like what's similar. And so yeah, and other things like, and yeah, and would they be interested, because I believe this book is by a Black author, so it would be interested, like obviously would they want more own voices, or yes, and so those other options. And yes, oh yeah, and sometimes if you don't have the book, you might also want to see if there's an audiobook similar. Yeah, and lots of other resources like Barnes and Noble and Novelist have TikTok trending lists that are a really good option. And yes, okay. And yeah, those are all really good. Yeah, and reviews and tags that like any other books that's similar for that to build off that list. Um, Another one question is like, this is a kind of sort of passive RU. At our library, we use like IG Live. And so like the day before, like the day before we do the live IG, we have like asked people like, what are you reading now? And the other second one we asked is on IG Live, we asked, what are you reading now? Or are there any books that you would recommend? And usually we take that in like 24 hours before. And so like we take that and then we kind of compile a list of books, read alikes and stuff from what people have said. And we just have a little live discussion there. And then we save it later because like we save it on our Instagram page, and so people can come back later and read it and stuff like that. So are there any other ideas that you have to like offer as far as like any other passive RA that your library has done? Oh, sorry, IG Live is Instagram Live. So like I said, it's pretty popular that people use it, and they can, like I said, they can watch the Instagram Live, which is usually at lunch hour, which is about noon here in our central time zone. But obviously, since we can save it for later and it'll be on our Instagram page, or like, what do you have? So like that Instagram Live, sorry, and like that. And I've seen a lot of great ideas like Tumblr let book reviews, staff layout on Tumblr, but like using displays, and that's one of my favorite. Or read like bookmarks if you can. And that one, a flyer with book talk accounts on them and hashtags. Someone use that one. Like I like staff pick bookmarks and shelf readers too, if you can make sure that yeah. Oh yeah. And the book list on the website and in the catalog if you have it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Book Bowl, which of course is a suggestion with slips paper on various genres. And oh wow. And someone said some libraries did book subscription boxes, which is really fun. But oh wow. I'm sorry. Wait. I'm sorry. That's yeah. Yeah, wow. And like, yeah, Facebook Live RAs and the similar ones. The blind date with a book, which was really popular, like since people can get idea of tropes and genre without actually knowing for certain, especially if you're like from books that are like not as high circulating. There's another way to put them in there and see if people can see that. Someone made Reader's Advisory scratch-offs, RA scratch-offs, which is really amazing. Oh, which is really amazing idea. And book children's department book bundles, we've had them like book backpacks, which we started through the at the beginning of the pandemic. So it was like people could have some books to take home like that after a while. And so yeah, and kind of still continue like book bundles. Yeah. Oh yeah, binders with genre recommendations, and especially if you have a large library system, that can help people that might not be as familiar with other aspects of it. Yeah. Oh, wow. And oh, someone says their library has book of the week in their local paper, which is wonderful. It's always a wonderful idea to reach out that way through local means and other groups, because your library has the people that already know about it and come in. And so reaching out in that way, which is more than quite passively, yeah. And so, yeah. And people have mentioned, oh, wow, this is, yeah, sorry. Oh yeah, leaving little notes around the library about the staff and patrons enjoy it. That's actually a wonderful idea. And people have really great ideas. And of course, yes, someone mentioned changing rotation of the carousels and overdrive, because obviously overdrive can make their own, but adding ones that are local to you or any local programs or events that are happening. For example, if a local theater is having like Your Good Man Charlie Brown, or like Bluey or something, or like the play or like that, you can have something themed around that, or just, or what did I say, children's stuff. It can be also about adult plays. So if they're having the latest, if Hamilton is finally going to be playing in your area, you can finally put something to that, or bring out one of the older reference advisory lists. Okay, wow. Yeah, oh yeah. And yeah, of course, and it doesn't have to be local, it can also be widespread, like the dark academia, because literally if you can tie it in, I'm in Texas, and so when that new Beyonce came out, it was a perfect time to try to tie in cowboy romance, like a list of that and stuff like that. And so yeah, and of course there's great ones. Wow, this is lots of really great idea, lots of great ideas. Wow. And they made us, and another person said they made a special cloud library shelves for different topics and genres, which is a really fascinating idea to help that. And someone says your next read option, where patrons can email in and get catered book recs to send back in their email phone call. Yeah, we have something like that. Someone at a branch did it. It was like just recommend like 3 books they've read, and they'll like look, leave like a little list or post it to that, and they'll come back and they'll give them like a little thing of like a similar book to what they read. And so that's a really great idea. Oh, yeah. Oh, and of course, for reading challenges and bibliographies. Oh, someone asked what's a scratch off. I'm sorry. I'm just now getting it. But scratch offs are literally like a little paper, and you like literally have to scratch off like, I don't know what they use on top, but you can see underneath what it is, and you can grow it off. But yeah. Oh wow. And someone, yeah, it's so not very good. Someone said it created a 6 degrees list in which there's some kind of connection between the titles. And it can be the connections like genre, author, narrator, or it could be something like books set in a specific locale with a specific type of secondary character. The connections can be wide ranges, which is a large part of the fun in creating such lists. The great for interactors is displays where the patrons can add their own connection is a shelf reader blurb to explain why their choice connects to a title on the display. That's from Lucy Lockley. It's a very like that. But yeah, I like the idea of a 6 degrees kind of connection between books. And so if people kind of read it or make their own connection, because lots of times people have read some patrons read much wider than you, and they can make a connection that you might not have made, or a connection that you did not know because you did not know about these two authors or that particular genre. Oh, I'm still trying to catch up. And someone else mentioned a whiteboard for patron suggestions where people can write like what they really like, or what they really like or read recently as a recommendation. So like it's kind of patron focused, they can offer that. And of course you want to kind of keep an eye on it. And if it's a whiteboard, you can kind of erase some people who have been goofing around or saying, or just stuff like that. Oh, someone asked what shelf talkers. Shelf talkers are like little things that have kind of a little thing that looks like a little piece of paper, kind of. I can't just, but imagine this is a shelf, and you can put like a little blurb on this that says like this book by this, and like the library staff can like, I read it because it's fast paced and it's really interesting, and I did not know about this particular field of work until I read it. And it could be obviously explaining a concept in any kind of genre. Yeah. How do you change the carousel? If you have yeah, sorry, I'm like trying to that. Someone suggested a Wheel of Fortune that patrons can spin and choose a title. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and there's QR code stickers on books that link to a short video review. And like they had a team that was making at their library, a team was making it. Usually in our books, we just have the QR code that goes to a link in our catalog because it's a lot easier and it doesn't take as much time to record. But yeah, a QR code that links to that particular set of books or a single book to kind of get started, or the like term and search term. And so that really helps. Yeah, 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 I'm still like a bit overwhelmed. You can obviously like that. Yeah, I'm sorry, I did not say that. I'm like trying to get that. Wait, sorry, I just also am controlling the thing. Oh yeah, March Madness is a popular one, and so obviously having people like enter in like what kind of things like that, or having them vote on particular books and like that until you get to a winner is that, and it gets people involved, which is not that much, is more. Oh, I'm really okay. Wait, I'm kind of lost. Uh, sorry. Yeah, yeah. And like someone mentioned a gumball. I'm trying to like find someone mentioned a gumball machine, and like obviously putting in book recommendations. Yeah, I'm like trying to find the both slips and but it's a little machine that like plastic toy bubbles in the gumball machine, which is really creative, and it looks like that. Yeah. Okay, and once again, there's a lot of great ideas. someone mentioned like resources for ideas like that. Once again, it's like this, like Pinterest, which are that. And like, of course, there's resources like Novelist and Booklist and like that. Oh yeah. And so, and like you can make it on, and you can make from there, even so, even if you don't exactly know, you can get a starting idea of where to get ideas to pick, to make more. And okay, when a patron, yeah, okay. And someone asked, like, going back to another question, when a patron wants to read a thriller but doesn't want the graphic death on page, is there a source that will give you this information on books, at least the very popular books? Yes, usually there is. It depends on that. And so, like I said, like Booklist and Novelist are pretty good. And sometimes if you're pressed on time or not exactly at your desk, I sometimes pull up Goodreads on my phone if I'm out in the stacks, and I just kind of see like if there's a mention of it. Someone has doesthedogdie.com, which I'm not sure if it offers books, but yeah, there's a lot of, oh yeah, Storygraph, of course, Storygraph also too, if you have a membership to that. But and so that Novelist, yes, Novelist and card subscription. But yeah, but Goodreads is good for crowdsourced like reviews and that, so you can get an idea of that. And yeah, yes, yes. And so there's lots of great ideas, and I think, oh yeah, and it's the same thing also when you're talking about romance, when people ask the level of spice, which is, I have a little bit more trouble because first of all, you have to parse out what a person thinks the level of spice is. And usually there's very anything like that. There's like some websites will make it clear that it is, you know, a closed door, or doesn't tell you in much description, or which one does. And of course you want obviously like that. Oh, and someone called it self-directed readers advisory, which is another great idea. Oh yeah. Oh, and so if someone, what about romance, has spice levels? Yes. Oh, and Common Sense Media, which is more families and teens, but I'm kind of adult, and so trying to figure out which an adult their level of comfort is a little bit interesting. Wow. So anyways, thanks for a really great, lots of suggestions. I kind of have to wrap it up. So thank you for your time. And yes, oh, and authors increasingly add trigger warnings, but yes, thank you so much for this. Sorry, yeah. And once again, thank you for this, and obviously chat like that. And so thanks also to you, because this was interactive and a lot of you were bringing in your own experience to help not just others, but maybe you've some great ideas. So thank you.
Great discussion, everyone. And as you can see, our emails are on this last slide. If you have any questions or any follow-up ideas that you wanted to share with us, feel free to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle and Sheila. That chat was intense, man. And we're going to do our best to make sure that we include a transcript of the chat in the materials that we send out in tomorrow's emails. So we're going to take a little break before our next workshop, Swoons and Screens, which will begin in a few minutes at 2:00 Central Time. So while you wait, please enjoy these resources and recommendations from our sponsors, Penguin Random House Library Marketing and Sourcebooks.